It is a dark and dreary day. It's a day that you just want to stay inside in a warm sweater and do some reading. Because of that, I thought it was the perfect day to talk about tips for beginner Latin students in reading. So let's get started. Welcome. As I've mentioned in the past, when you first start to read Latin, it can be really difficult as you're transitioning to the inflected language system. I will link to my previous video introducing Latin and inflected language up here in the corner for you if you haven't already seen it. So at the beginning, it's not terrible, but once you start adding things onto the sentence like prepositional phrases or possessives, then we can start to have some issues, especially just with word order. They want to read subject, verb, object, and that's not what they see necessarily every single time. And so obviously my goal is to take away this grammar side of Latin and to have a fluidity to their reading. But to do that, I need them to know that every ending and every word is purposeful and intentional. To do this, I introduced a system where I write sentences vertically, and I ask the students to fully label each word. Now, of course, all Latin tests have this, but I like to do it when they're actually doing the readings as well, because it prepares them both for the test, and also it in the long run helps them to have a more fluid way of reading, because they're training their brains not only to know where to look for words, but also what to expect when you see that word. What do I need to know about that word? What do I know? What do I not know? And so forth. It's all just preparing and building those skills into the students. And so when I do this, I call it scaffolding. We're building up the scaffolding. We're kind of overcomplicating things just a little bit in order to ultimately simplify things and add a fluidity to their understanding and to their reading. So I'm going to show you today 2 examples of this. They're not very complicated examples, but they serve to show my concept, and you can use them for any sentence you have. I use this for much more difficult Latin, sometimes if I'm really confused, and it just helps me to take away my desire to go word, and take away my desire to just translate, and it introduces my desire to know why each word was placed there and understand it from a Latin grammatical side and away from just translation. So let's look at my 2 examples and see if it will help elucidate things. Here we have our first sentence, scintilla aquam portat. First I'll write it vertically, then I'll take each word in its turn. Now, you can start with any words you want. I always start with the verb. Today, for the purposes of demonstration, I'll just go 1, 2, 3, but generally speaking, I will take the words in turn as I see fit at the time. Scintilla. Scintilla, nominative singular, and then the quotation marks is always the English, whatever that may be. And if the student struggles with the idea of the case system, then I'll use just grammar. It is the subject. It's the singular subject. Aquam, aquam of course is the accusative singular, water. In English grammar, it is the direct object, right? So either way you write it, they're understanding how it functions in the sentence. Lastly, portat from portare, third person singular, and then present. Now, of course, there's a lot of information with verbs, so I'll use as much or as little as I need, depending on the situation I'm in. And then in the quotation marks, I'll always have the English, but I'll have the English written correctly for that situation. So if it is present tense, I'll write it in present tense, and I'll write the pronoun that is associated with that particular verb at the time. So if it was portas, I would write you carry, and so forth. These are basically notes so that when we put everything together and we have our sentence, we can use what's in those quotation marks and use our understanding of how everything works and get the best translation possible. I found in the past, if I write in English something other than what will ultimately be written in my translation, it causes a lot of confusion. So if I were to have written to carry, then they'll want to write she to carry water, and it gets very confusing. So if you write as it will be written, it helps to create a better translation in the end, and it helps to also put all of the information together. You've talked about the grammar, and now you want to see it in action in the correct way. Our next sentence, per omnes vias in Murris casarum nunti candidatiorum picti erant. Then we'll write out the sentence vertically. I like to keep prepositional phrases together. If there's something else in the prepositional phrase other than just the object of the preposition, I may separate that. It depends on the student, of course. So I'm going to go again one by one, but I would always start with the verb. Here we have per omnes vias, and this is, of course, this prepositional phrase. Per takes an accusative, through all of the streets. Omnes agreeing with vias. In Murris, in plus ablative. On the walls. Again, writing it in English as accurately as possible to both connect the grammar and to get a good translation. Of the houses. Which walls? The houses' walls. This is your subject. Again, you can do it as a nominative or the subject or as both, whatever gets the message across. And then the message about what? Whose message? The candidates. Then we have picti. Now, this comes originally from the verb pingere, but here we have it as an adjective agreeing with nunti. And I both state that it's a nominative and also what it's agreeing with, so you have some connection in your notes to what it's agreeing with and the meaning. Lastly, erant, the third person plural, imperfect from, of course, essay. They were. These notes function as just that, notes. They're basically to get what's inside the mind and what's disorganized out in the mind and get it on paper in the clearest way possible. Creating a template for these type of notes, I've done this in the past, has also really helped to urge the students to ask the right questions. Okay, well, when you see a verb, I want you to know what these 4 things are. I will ask as little or as much depending on what my student needs to know. Either they themselves writing it or through kind of a template or just through my verbal guidance. The student learns over and over again what he needs to know, what questions have been answered, what questions haven't been answered. And in so doing, they are forming habits and forming skills that will, in the long run, enable them to read fluidly. After you have all of this together, of course, you have the nice translation. Messages of the candidates are painted throughout all the streets on the walls of the houses. So they not just that they have strung together English words because they understand what they mean, but that they understand it on the Latin side without translation. Okay, I'm looking at this, which is accusative, which is the object. Or in our case, we're looking at the complement messages, which are painted. It's very important that they understand it from a grammatical side so that they can read without the constant need to translate, so that they're not just forming good English sentences, but that they're understanding Latin sentences themselves. If you are a beginning Latin student, try to use this at home with yourself. It's really important to test yourself, especially on things that you're not sure about and you don't know right now. Then you'll be prepared for the test, the ultimate test, like in your class. The harder your personal tests are, the better you'll do on the official tests. I promise. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Please press the subscribe button to see more videos like this and leave a comment. I always want to hear from you. Thank you. Bye-bye.